How far would you go for wealth if you knew an ancient curse awaited you? Two thieves, Jack and Mark, broke into a Gothic mansion lost in the forest, seeking something valuable. But this house is more than just a beautiful trap. The walls whisper, the paintings watch their every move, and an ominous presence lingers in the air. What hides in its shadows, and will they manage to escape? This story will make you fear the dark. If you're ready to unravel this mystery, support me with a like a light in this darkness, and subscribe to not miss out on more chilling tales. Let's dive in. Jack and Mark were the best thieves in their line of work. Over the past 5 years, they had robbed dozens of wealthy homes, leaving the police empty-handed. Jack, impulsive and bold, always charged ahead, relying on his instincts and agility, while Mark, thoughtful and cautious, was the brains of their operations, meticulously planning each move. Their greed led them to a new target, a massive Victorian mansion with Gothic elements hidden deep in the forest on the outskirts of the state. The house belonged to an eccentric millionaire who, according to rumors, collected occult artifacts. The thieves didn't believe the rumors, but they knew one thing for sure. Such a house had to hold something valuable. The break-in. The moonlit night bathed the forest in silvery light as Jack and Mark approached the mansion. The house's tall spires rose above the trees, and its stained glass windows depicting strange creatures with empty eyes cast eerie shadows. The mansion wasn't abandoned. The grounds were guarded, with security cameras lining the perimeter, and silhouettes of guards flickered in the first-floor windows. But that night, the guards were relaxed. Two men sat in the security room, laughing and sipping coffee, oblivious to the uninvited guests. "They're not even watching the monitors," Mark whispered, peering through binoculars. "But the cameras are still active. We need to be careful." "Relax, Mark," Jack dismissed with a smirk. "We're in the middle of the woods. No one's going to notice us. Let's go." They skirted the cameras, using the tree shadows for cover, and climbed over the high fence. Jack quickly picked the lock on the back door, and they slipped inside. The house greeted them with the scent of old wood and mold, despite its lived-in appearance. The vast hall, with its marble floor and soaring ceilings, was adorned with strange statues, half-human, half-beast figures with clawed hands and hollow eyes, as if watching their every move. The walls were lined with paintings, dark portraits of people in Victorian attire, their eyes seemingly turning to follow the intruders. "These paintings, they're creepy," Mark muttered, a chill running down his spine. "They feel alive." "You're too paranoid," Jack chuckled, though his voice wavered. "Let's find the valuables and get out of here." In their houses of strangeness. They moved deeper, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. Strange sounds emanated from the walls, whispers or creaks, as if the house itself were breathing. Mark paused at one door, hearing behind it the angry shrieks of small, inhuman creatures, as if a pack were arguing among themselves. He froze, his hand trembling on the doorknob. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. "Don't open it," Jack snapped, already working on another door. "We don't need extra trouble." Mark nodded, stepping back, but the shrieks continued, as if the creatures knew they were being listened to. Meanwhile, Jack fiddled with the lock of another room. The pick clicked and the door creaked open. Inside was darkness, but the moonlight streaming through the window illuminated a massive figure in the corner. Jack's heart sank. Before him slept a dog of unnatural size, its fur black as coal and its fangs protruding like those of a saber-toothed tiger. The beast breathed heavily, its eyes closed, but even in sleep, it looked terrifying. "Mark, over here," Jack whispered, backing away. Mark rushed over and peeked inside. Seeing the dog, he turned pale. "Close the door, now!" he hissed. Jack slowly shut the door, trying not to make a sound. They pressed against the wall, breathing heavily, waiting for the dog to wake and charge. But all was silent. "That's no dog. It's something else," Mark murmured. "We need to leave." "No," Jack cut in, his eyes gleaming with greed. "We're already here. Let's find something valuable and get out." The black altar. They climbed to the second floor and entered a room where they found a small chest containing gold coins and an ancient amulet encrusted with rubies. Jack grinned, stuffing the loot into his backpack. "Now that's luck," he said, "but let's look for more." Mark nodded, but his gaze fell on a black altar in the center of the room, covered in ancient symbols that made his head spin. On the altar lay a book, old, bound in leather, its cover bearing the imprinted face of a man, contorted in a grimace of pain and suffering, as if screaming silently. Mark's stomach churned. "Don't touch it," he warned, but Jack had already grabbed the book. "This is clearly worth a fortune," Jack smirked, flipping through the pages. The text inside was written in an unknown language, the letters wriggling as if alive. "We're taking it with us." The moment the book left the altar, the house came alive. The lights in the corridors flickered, the statues creaked as they turned their heads toward the thieves. The paintings on the walls began to whisper, their voices merging into a sinister chorus. "Return, return." The floor trembled, and from the depths of the house came a roar. The dog had awakened. The curse awakens. Jack and Mark bolted for the stairs, but the book in Jack's hands began to exude darkness. Its pages rustled, and visions flashed before the thieves' eyes. Bloody hands reaching from the walls, faces screaming in agony, and black shadows whispering threats. Jack stumbled, his mind clouding, nearly falling. "Drop it!" Mark shouted, but Jack clutched the book tighter. "No, this is our ticket to freedom!" They reached the first floor, but the house had changed. The guards, who had been laughing in the security room moments ago, now stood in the hall, their eyes hollow and their skin gray like corpses. They had turned into ghouls, their movements jerky, a low growl escaping their mouths. One lunged at Mark, but he dodged, grabbing a decorative candlestick from the wall and smashing it into the ghoul's head. The creature fell but began to rise again. "They don't die!" Mark yelled. "Run!" The statues in the hall came to life, their clawed hands reaching for the thieves, while the paintings continued their cursed whispers. The dog Jack had seen in the room now chased them, its roar shaking the walls. From the dark corners crawled small creatures with glowing eyes, the same ones whose shrieks Mark had heard behind the door. They leapt onto the walls, hissing and clawing at the air, their voices joining in a chilling chant. "The prey has come to us. The master will be pleased." The book intensified the visions. Mark saw himself being torn apart, while Jack saw his soul dissolving into darkness. Both lost their bearings. The corridors shifted, doors vanished, and staircases led nowhere. "We won't escape while we hold it," Mark shouted, snatching the book from Jack's hands and throwing it to the floor. But it was too late. The shadows thickened and the dog caught up. Its fangs clamped onto Jack's leg and he screamed, struggling to fight back. Mark grabbed a chair and struck the beast, but it shook its head, hurling Jack against the wall. The ghouls closed in, their claws gouging deep scratches into the floor. "Run, Mark!" Jack rasped, realizing his end was near. "I'll hold them off." Mark bolted for the door, hearing Jack's screams behind him. He burst outside, the cold forest air burning his lungs. Glancing back, he saw the house slam its doors shut, as if swallowing Jack. Shadows flickered in the windows, and Mark knew his partner would never leave that house again. Epilogue. Mark returned to the city, but the memories of that night haunted him. The gold and amulet they had stolen lay in his backpack, their weight feeling cursed. He tried to forget, but every night he heard whispers. Jack's voice begging for help, mingled with the laughter of the small creatures in the dark. One day he found a page from that book in his pocket, though he was certain he'd left it in the house. On the page was his own face, twisted in a grimace of pain. He knew the curse was still with him, and one day it would return to claim him. In the forest, the Victorian mansion fell silent again. The guards sat in their room, laughing as if nothing had happened. But in one of the rooms beside the black altar, a new statue appeared. A statue of Jack, his face frozen in a scream, forever part of the house. This story has ended, but more secrets lurk in the shadows waiting to be revealed. A subscription costs nothing, but it's like a key that unlocks my power to weave new mystical tales. Subscribe, leave a like, and let's uncover nightmares together.